Welcome to the Dice Tower, a series of video reviews about board and card games. Here are your hosts, Tom Vassell and Sam Healy.
Today we're going to talk about Shadowrift. Shadowrift is a very unique idea. It's a cooperative fantasy deck builder. Well, okay.
Not original.
Maybe nothing in that's original. There's lots of cooperative games, there's lots of fantasy games, and there's definitely lots of deck builder games. There's only one other cooperative fantasy deck builder, and that's Lord of the Rings. And this one certainly feels different than Lord of the Rings. But I have to say nowadays that when I get a deck building game, I'm kind of a little suspicious because they need to show me something that's new and unusual. Does that do this? Let's see. Alright, as you can see, this is kind of the main setup for the game. This is a lot of cards and the way they're set up. You're going to have, these cards are always going to be here. Strike, Coin, Might, and Seal. Those 4 coins are always there. You also always use Corpse, Heroism, and Wound cards. And then you have 8 other decks of cards that are placed out that are kind of randomly chosen, although there's 4 different kinds. There's skills, actions, spells, action attacks, and then loot cards, and so I picked 2 of each to show you. Then up here, these 4 cards are just showing you where monsters are played. Then over here we have 8 walls. These are used in every game. And then, we're still not done, we have a deck of Traveling Villager cards, which is placed here. And we have a deck of Villager cards, which is placed here. And there's only 10 Villager cards. Then you're going to pick a group of monster cards. So we could use the zombie cards, and they're pretty neat. But what we'll do is we'll take this deck here. These are these, I don't know what these guys are, the stone golems or something like that. And you'll shuffle this deck, but you're going to place it face up over here near the top of the pile. So you can see that there's a Thieving Rockjaw on top. But you can't see that? Well, let's focus on it. There's a Thieving Rockjaw. Now, that number in the coin is how much power it will take to bring him out. The red number is his hit points, and those 2 little purple symbols are his power that he generates. What does all that mean? Well, hang on. Each player is going to get a starting deck of cards, and I do like the fact that they have this starting deck here with swords, so they're easy to find. And you have a whole bunch of prowess here, and then you have a couple strike cards and an explore card. And you'll be shuffling this together and then drawing 5 cards from this for your hand. Now, the way this game works, I'm not going to go over the game in great detail because there's a lot, but I do want to mention right here that the rule book is not very well written, but in the 2nd edition, I hear that it will be. Now, what you're going to do in the very first part of the game is you're going to draw cards. So you'll draw 5 cards each turn, and you'll look at these cards and see what they are. And it's a cooperative game, so everyone's doing it at the same time. You'll then refresh the town. So if there had been cards here, you would wipe them off, put them in the discard pile, and draw 5 new ones. So we'll talk about the town in just a second. You'll refresh the travelers. From this traveler deck, you will draw the top 2 cards and put them here. Now, there's 2 types of travelers that can show up. Let me show you the 2 different kinds. We have a Traveler Villager over here, focusing on these. And we have a Traveler Infiltrator Villager, an Infiltrator Villager. Now, the Traveler Villager, he'll stay here for now, but the Infiltrator Villager is immediately taken and placed into the discard pile for the town. He's now someone in your town, and he's kind of a pain in the neck. Then after you've refreshed both of those, any monsters who are in play are going to act. As the game progresses, monsters are going to start here, and then each turn they're going to move 1 and act. So you can see here, for instance, on this card, that the cards will act differently depending what number they're over. So here, number 1, this guy kills a guard, and he'll add a totem instead of hunting if there is no guard. And 2, if there are 3 totems on the board, heroes lose all their coin. And number 3, he'll kill the innkeeper. Now, those people have to be out, but you can see that there is a guard here, so if that guy showed up, he would kill this guard, who would be put on the bottom of the traveling deck, because another guard might show up someday in the future, and replace that guard with a corpse. And if at any point during the game, you have corpses filling your whole village here, you've lost. So you have to be very careful not to let these guys walk around and kill. And if you notice, he also talked about bringing out totems. That's something that's specific to that deck in particular, but totems will come out and different creatures will activate depending on how many totems. That's specific to that group of monsters. Then after that, monsters gain power. Now, the way this works is you will gain power equal to the number of players in the game. So each turn, 2 power will be added in a 2-player game, let's say, and put here. However, once the monster goes all the way through to the 3rd round, after he's done there, he'll come over here to the power area and he'll also add his power. So he would add, in a 2-player game, there would be 4 added if this guy makes it here. So you want to kill these monsters off so they don't add too much power. The reason for all this power is because when you look at the top creature, and if there is enough power that equals this coin, then you would bring that creature out. In fact, if there was enough power to bring out multiple creatures, you'd bring them all out. So creatures are going to slowly be coming out and marching through and causing havoc. Then after that, after you add these, then the heroes get to go. And that's kind of the meat of the game, because you're going to use the cards that you've drawn from the deck. And you can kind of go at the same time here and do different things. And what can you do on your turn? Well, each player can use one of these villagers down here, which is another reason you don't want them to die. Now notice here the child says you can't lose while he's in play. That's great, except he's not always there and he might be killed. But here, you can spend a coin when you're attacking to get an extra hit. Here you can take an extra action on your turn. Here, if you use this guy, you reduce the cost of a wall by 2 coins. And the guard, you just got to be careful. It just says the hero, oh, that's a corpse. What am I saying? That's a bad thing. Now, what you can do on your turn is you can take 1 action. And there's a lot of cards that say action on them. For example, this Resurrect card, which allows you to change a corpse back into a villager, is an action that you can take. Okay, that's an action. There are cards that are called quick actions, like this Strike here, and you can play as many of those as you want. And you'll find as the game progresses that you will want those extra actions, because actions can be pretty good. One of the actions that you can do, or quick actions, is attack monsters. And it's a very simple process. For example, take a look at the basic attack card here, a Strike. It's a melee hit, and whenever you hit the monster, you just do 1 damage to him. And then you yourself will also take a wound. And you'll stick this wound in your deck, which doesn't do much other than clog up your deck, but you can pay 2 here of this resource to get rid of the wound from your deck, but you'll find that you'll get a lot of wounds as time progresses. You can pay 2 when you're playing this hit to make the hit ranged. A ranged attack is the same thing as a regular attack, except you don't take the wound cards in your hand. Another thing you can do is you can buy cards. Now, most cards that you buy have a cost at the bottom that's made up. Here you can see this one costs 4 and this one costs 3. Some of the cards cost coins. Like this loot card costs coins. Now, coins are a neat idea, because when you buy, you can buy coins and you keep them in front of you and you pay for that, but you can also give coins to other players. That's the only thing you can give to another player. Because what you're trying to do is you are trying your hardest to be able to build these walls. Building walls is a good thing for 2 reasons. One, when you build a wall, it goes into the villager deck, it will show up, and it's a nice ability that will stop monsters sometimes. Another thing is, if you build all 8 walls, you win. Now, walls are expensive. You'll see this one here costs 4, 5, and 0. What's that little blue symbol? Well, that's magic. Some cards, like this Resurrect card that I showed you earlier, instead of playing it for what it is, you can play it as a magic point for when you need to do magic things. Other cards will use magic, like a Fireball here does a ranged hit. If you play another magic card, it does an extra hit. And if you play another magic card, it will do an extra hit to every other monster in play. So that can be pretty handy. So what players are doing is they're trying to work together to attack the monster, to use the villager's actions, to buy more cards. When you buy a card, it gets put in your discard pile, that when it's shuffled, you will get those cards back again. To build walls, buy and build walls. And you can also hire these villagers. Like, for example, this baker here, each hero may remove a wound from his hand. This guy costs 4 and 1. And if you get him, you put him into your deck. Now, that's good because it's another villager, and also because that's a pretty good special ability to use. And even as your villagers are killed, like I said, they go to the bottom and they might show up again where you can hire them. These infiltrator villagers are annoying. Like this guy, the first player to play a spell this round takes a wound. So every time he's out there, anytime someone plays a spell, they're going to take a wound, but you can pay a magic to get him out of play, which can be handy. But the infiltrators will show up and be a pain in the neck. Now, I could go on to a long extended review showing you all the different types of cards and different things, but basically there are skill cards, like this one. Once per round when you make a melee attack, you may discard a wound for +1 hit, which is really handy. And when you get this card, you put it in front of you, and it's always in play, except you have to pay 1 each turn to keep the card in play. So that's what skill cards are. You put them in play. Loot cards are great, but they have to be bought. Okay, when you play it, you put it in play and it's there forever. So all your attacks are quick. This card is from play when attacking for +2 hits. So loot cards are neat. Then the attack cards, I've already showed you some of those, and different actions and spells and healing and such. So the game is over when you either build all the town walls, when you win, or this is filled with corpses and you lose. But there's another way to win. When you're going to put these Shadowrifts in the deck, and these Shadowrift cards, you're going to put one in the deck for each player in the game. They are shuffled into the monster deck. When they show up, they're just a pain in the neck. They come up and they're going to add power to the monsters. But you can use these seal cards to seal the Shadowrifts. And if you seal all the Shadowrifts, then you'll win. However, you have to realize that if you are sealing Shadowrifts and you have to wait for them to show up, which means you have to be constantly fighting monsters, which means they might destroy your town in the meanwhile. So sealing the Shadowrifts is also another way to win. And if you build all 8 walls, you win. If you kill the Shadowrifts, you win. Otherwise, if the corpses in your town, you win. Some monsters can kill you outright. And if there's no walls or villagers in your town at the beginning of your turn, then you also lose. So different ways to win, different ways to lose. I think that Shadowrift is kind of a ho-hum name. The cards themselves, the artwork is, in my opinion, okay. Yeah. It's not like I'm looking at it going, wow, great artwork.
Right.
And the game is a little fiddly. There's a lot of decks to move around. You're moving the town deck and the villager deck. And there's one rule I didn't mention in the overview that where when you kill monsters, you get points equal to the number of icons shown on the side. You get not points, but you get these cards that you put in your deck. What are these cards called? They are called heroism cards. And those cards act as either a wild coin or a wild magic, basically a wild one of the 3 different resources. So the game's a little fiddly, the theme's a little generic, although I did like to pick some monsters. And all that aside, I really, really like this game. I was very impressed. It's so interesting because you're sitting there and there's so many different things. I felt like the cards made sense. You were buying cards to use different attacks. Some of the attacks like flanking, you get that from your Dungeons and Dragons type thing, and it fit in this game. And the cooperation level is very high because you're saying, oh, you should do that, and I'll do this, and how can we work together to win? So, and the 3 different resources to buy things and to fighting, you get wounded, but the wounds don't kill you, but they can be a pain in the neck. I'm going to start out by saying this was very enjoyable for me. I was very surprised at how much I liked it.
It was a little clunky at the first because we couldn't really understand how everything fit together.
Well, that's partially the rules.
This thing doesn't work very well.
But I must say that we're looking at the first edition. This is already sold out, basically.
Yeah.
The second edition is going to be reprinted soon, and I was told very specifically that the rulebook would be dealt with.
Okay, well, that's good. Because it definitely needed to be dealt with. We're talking about, there was no setup guides, no nothing, and that was just kind of like,
it tells you how to set up, but doesn't show you a picture.
Right, it doesn't show you how it's supposed to look. So that was kind of difficult at the very beginning. However, once we got it set up and once we had some moments.
Let's start over. We're bombing this game.
We started over and then it ran like clockwork. We really understood at first. We were playing some of the, what were we playing, Ron? We were playing the...
Yeah, we were bringing out 2 monsters. We had like 18 monsters marching the village. And I said, how are we supposed to beat this?
We were getting our butts handed to us.
And I said, oh, so...
And we were playing some rules wrong. So we flipped that around and it ran like clockwork. And we really enjoyed the game, as Tom already said. This kind of feels like cooperative Thunderstone, if I want to put a brand on it. I don't want to get too close to that because it isn't like Thunderstone exactly. However, it does have the theme to it that Dominion lacks as far as the deck building is concerned. But this pulls off the cooperative aspect rather well.
Yeah, and again, I'm going to just keep jumping on how much I enjoy the theme. The traveling villagers. You pay them and give them a job so they come work in your town, and then they help you fight the monsters.
Yeah.
You build a wall, and that wall actually helps stop the more monsters from coming in. Monsters will kill specific people. When someone's dead, you feel it.
Yeah.
And I just said that you were kind of I guess you are a character in this game. You are someone. You're out there fighting, and your deck is you.
Yeah.
But it's just very interesting, and the game could devolve into somebody telling everybody else what to do, I suppose.
That's true of any cooperative game, if you allow it to happen. That would have to be a concerted effort, though, to keep that not...
But there is going to be a lot of talking about what to do, because you can say, hey, did you notice if you do that and this, or I'm going to attack first this turn, so that you can do the follow-up attack, which gives you something better.
But that's kind of the glory of a cooperative game. There's more interaction in a cooperative game, and I think that's why this pulls it off, because you can kind of show people what you have in your hand, and you can work together by talking about, oh, you have that, well, I have this, and all this kind of stuff. So,
but I felt like there was a lot of cooperation in this game, and this game actually reminds me a lot of like Ghost Stories. Huh. Not that they play the same, they don't, but they have the same feel. In Ghost Stories, you have monsters attacking. You go over there and do that. You go over here, and it's just the same way. There's maybe not so many monsters, but some of these monsters are mean.
Yes.
And they come in, and you say, "Oh, let's do that," and you really feel like you're fighting off waves of monsters, and that's something that I really enjoy in a game. Is that constant? Come on, we finish, because it can have a big ending, and the fact that there's two very different ways to win. Mm-hmm. Sealing the Shadowrift or building the wall, and both ways are difficult. It's not an easy game, and you can easily make it harder, by using some monsters are harder than others.
Right.
You can add more of the Shadowrifts in the deck if you think, give yourself a challenge. And it seems like it's rife for expansions. Yeah, some really cool stuff.
Closing the Shadowrift seems like an easy way to win the game, but it really isn't, because it becomes a game of waiting. Waiting for the cards to show up. If they show up early, you've got yourself an easy game. However, if you don't, you're going to be fighting a lot of monsters. You're going to be battling a lot, and that becomes a little bit more tedious, a little bit more difficult. The other way to win, building the walls, that to me seems a lot more difficult, because there's a lot of walls and it costs a lot of loot, a lot of money to get those things built. But I mean, I think they're like Tom said, they're completely different ways to win. They have different feels to them even. So let's go ahead and vote. I'm going to go ahead and say 2 major dark elves up.
Oh, yeah, I don't even have 2 corpses up.
Corpses are bad things in this game.
Yeah, they are. But again, it's just the corpses. To me, they're so thematic. The one army is zombies, and they can bring a corpse to life as a zombie. Yeah. You have a hero who can come in and raise a corpse up, and they become a townsperson. I'd like it. Nothing in this game felt like it was just a card that you put in. Well, maybe the cards that you use to buy things, that didn't really mean anything. But for the most part, when you bought a sword, you felt like you bought a sword, not like you bought another card that helped you get 2 actions, 3 gold, and 4 buys.
Yeah.
So I very much enjoy it. I look forward to seeing the next edition, because if this is the first edition, the second edition can only get better. So Shadowrift, a game I like a lot.
Very much so.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.